today, Ty, you've written a piece that could sort of open the door to United spending a bit more money than the perceived 120 million that we've talked about. I don't want to butcher it, so can you just run us through this loophole with FFP that you've unearthed?
Yeah, I used the phrase loophole in the headline, and I guess I don't know whether it's a loophole or not, but it was the easiest word to fit into a headline to try and explain it. United are insistent they've got FFP issues. They were in January, they are now. Whether they have or not, I've got my doubts, to be honest. I'm no expert, but from speaking to people and looking at their accounts, it's hard to see where these issues do actually come from. There is some uncertainty around COVID losses and what counts and what doesn't, in terms of meeting FFP requirements, but there's no obvious concerns that I can see for United, but they're insistent they have got them, which is why they've got this limited budget. There's a word that's entered the football lexicon these days that certainly Chelsea over the last 12 months have come to use a lot in pieces around them, and it's amortisation, basically. It's a word that's written a lot these days, and as I'm finding, it's actually very hard to say. But it's basically how transfer fees are recorded on the books of clubs. So although it would, in money terms for a transfer budget, if you sold a player for 30 million or 50 million, that would go on the budget. If there's ways around how it goes in the accounts to satisfy FFP demands, and how things look with financial fair play with UEFA in the Premier League. So we know with Chelsea, they sign players on long contracts because fees are amortised over the length of that contract. So to use Mount as an example, 55 million is going to be booked in the accounts because he signed a 5-year contract at £11 million a year. And then when a player is sold, however long is left on that contract is their value, and anything over that is profit. So to use Harry Maguire as an example, he was signed for 80 million for 6 years, I think. That's about 13.3 million a year. He's got 2 years left. So his book value is 26.6 million. So if United sold him for, say, 35 million this summer, in the accounts towards FFP, although that looks like a loss because they signed him for 80 million, because his value depreciates once he starts playing for United. It's like a car in a way, especially for a player like Maguire who's a little bit older and was only ever going to drop in value. So if they sold him for 35 million, in the books that would actually go down as about a £9 million profit, even though it looks like a loss because he was signed for 80 million. But the best example, and why Chelsea have sold a couple of academy graduates, is that an academy graduate is free, essentially. There is no book value. So when you sell them, it is pure profit. So Mason Mount is £55 million in pure profit to Chelsea, which is massive for FFP, which brings us on to Scott McTominay, who, from what I'm told, speaking to someone yesterday, is just more likely to stay than go at the moment. But if Scott wanted to go, or if there was interest in him, United would consider it. And the advantages it has for FFP is that if they sold him for 30 million, say, that's 30 million that is booked straight away. And for Mason Mount, it's £11 million in next year's accounts. And if they say, the example I use in my piece to keep it simple was they sell McTominay for 30 million, that's 30 million in next year's accounts. They signed Sofian Amrabat for 30 million on a 4-year deal, that's only 7.5 million in next year's accounts. So in terms, if they have got FFP issues and if they need to look good for UEFA, then selling McTominay for 30 million and signing Amrabat for 30 million on a 4-year deal, say, actually produces an accounting profit for next year of 23.5 million. So that's kind of ways that clubs are looking to get around FFP issues now. Like I say, in pure monetary terms, what's available to Ten Hag, anything you sell is probably going to go straight on his budget. But in terms of getting round FFP and making your accounts look a bit rosier for UEFA or the Premier League, that sort of thing is quite good, because that's an example where you could sell McTominay, buy Amrabat for the same fee. In the books next year, that goes down as a £23.5 million trading profit.
The biggest thing I'm going to pull from that is that you've just said that United could potentially advertise Harry Maguire as a profitable asset. That is incredible, and I absolutely love the idea of that, especially how that would trigger so many people on social media if that was a headline somewhere.
I know, an accounting profit on Harry Maguire. Yeah. I mean, it clearly would be a loss, although he is, the fact is that he was always going to be a loss for United. They didn't spend 80 million on Harry Maguire to sell him for profit years later. It's just a fact because he signed at 26. They were never going to turn a profit on Harry Maguire, but in accountancy terms, they could still turn a profit on him, basically. in terms of like how it looks to UEFA in the Premier League and the accounts.
Listen to the full Manchester is Red podcast on your preferred podcast platform now. No one covers Manchester United quite like the Manchester Evening News, and with our Pro app, you can experience our coverage ad-free, pop-up free and distraction-free for the low price of $2.99 a month or $19.99 for an entire year. But what do you get? The most comprehensive 24-hour coverage of Manchester United, including on-scene, insight and exclusives from our dedicated team of writers, including our chief Man United writer, Samuel Luckhurst. We will keep you in the know about any news coming out of Old Trafford, including takeovers, transfers and exclusives only available on our app. Download the app today through the link below and have your first month completely free of charge on us.